Okay, hello everybody. So welcome to Friday. It is October 14th, Youth Peace Week. We have Patrick Chun from the IITTI on with us today. But as always, I do like to start this presentation with an opening. Before we start anything though, I do a land acknowledgement. So we begin today by acknowledging those or that we walk upon the traditional territories of Indigenous peoples and we recognize their history, spirituality, culture, and stewardship of the land. We're grateful to all Indigenous groups for their commitment to protect the land and its resources, and we are committed to reconciliation, partnership, and enhanced understanding. We acknowledge the land we are meeting on here in the Greater Toronto Area is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Wendat, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Anishinaabe peoples, and is now home to many diverse peoples. We'd also like to acknowledge the land we're on here is at the meeting place of two treaties, the lands of the Mississaugas of the Credit and those of the First Nations of the Williams Treaty. We would like to thank them and other Indigenous peoples for sharing this land with us. We also acknowledge and recognize all of the world's Indigenous peoples as stewards of Mother Earth. One other thing I do like to say is Sawubona, and this means I see you, I see myself in you, and I see your hopes, your dreams, and your struggles. I see your ancestors as well, because interconnectedness does not end with two people who are greeting each other. It extends to include the ancestors. All beings in Mother Nature are interconnected. There is no sense of being separate. I see myself in all beings, and therefore, if I harm other beings or Mother Nature, it translates into harming myself. So I do have a PowerPoint presentation that I will share as well. Just give me 1 second to share the screen. Oh, I don't have access to share the screen at this time.
Yes, you do.
Okay, let me try again. All right, that worked this time. Thank you. So this is actually from our IGU Summit. So I will just keep this on the screen because this is just a reminder that we do this event also every Thursday, the Indigenous Global Unity Summit events. But I wanted to also mention today some of the events that are coming up because there are some important things that I think need to be mentioned again. Yesterday was the International Day for Disaster Risk Reduction, October 13th, where I did this presentation about the Science for Peace COSWAG Climate Smart Food Program that was developed from about June 2017 with Meta Spencer, Emeritus Professor of Sociology at the University of Toronto and the former chair of Science for Peace. She was the creator of Peace Magazine and the How to Save the World conference series, i.e. Project Save the World. This is information new that I am putting into the chat as well. Yesterday, again, the International Day for Disaster Risk Reduction. We also have related to that a number of groups related to the Climate Smart Food Program. Again, I am putting to the chat for those in attendance, the various related groups to that program that we did. Tomorrow as well is the International Day of Rural Women, so Saturday, October 15th. Quite important day as well in our calendar. Unfortunately, we do not have any presenters on that day. We originally were going to have somebody from UnityNet in Africa to do a presentation for us, but they are actually in New York at this time. So we will also have a final presentation during this UnityNet Youth Peace Week series on Sunday, October 16th. That will be done by Dr. Amadou Monday Amadou from Yeli International in Nigeria. He will be presenting to us about his CAPH awards and ceremonies done with UnityNet Nigeria. I wanted to mention as well, Sunday, October 16th is World Food Day. This is the date intended to launch our UnityNet yearly hybrid regenerative climate smart food conference events. So October 16th, World Food Day. Again, the information is available for participants in the chat. So the Climate Smart Youth Forum discussion group was created last year. And so that is with Dr. Amadou. And recently we also created a Climate Smart Youth Forum Week WhatsApp discussion group as well. This is now what we call Youth Peace Week. And this discussion group is administered by Dr. Mary Ifeanyi Solanke from UnityNet Nigeria as well. I mentioned as well that last week, Saturday, October 8th, was World Migratory Bird Day. This is important because what we would like to do is in the interim, as we move forward with our programs, if we are unable to make it to the COP meeting in Egypt this coming November, but related to this, during this Youth Peace Week events, is an event coming up. I would like to send a delegation from UnityNet Canada, if possible, to the 15th Conference of the Parties on Biological Diversity, or COP15, that will take place in Montreal this coming December. So this will be much easier for us to get to. So we should have a discussion with our UnityNet Biodiversity team leader, Leslie Adams, from the Sierra Club of Canada, who is also the Sierra Club lead on the integration of the SDGs into the Sierra Club activities for Sierra Club of Ontario. So again, in the chat, you will find information about the UN Biodiversity Conference, COP15, which takes place from December 7 to 19. So it's a fairly long event, a couple of weeks, again in Montreal. I do also want to share a little bit of additional information about the organization Sierra Club Canada. In this case, I am sharing a couple of links, both to Sierra Club of Ontario, which is related to the work that our colleague is doing, as well as the Ontario Biodiversity Council. And from the Biodiversity Council, there are a large number of members, including the Union of Ontario Indians, the Ontario Ministry of Natural Resources, Ducks Unlimited, the Chiefs of Ontario, Birds Canada, Ontario Power Generation, Ontario Federation of Agriculture, and a very large number of other organizations. If one can look at the links as in the Who We Are link, you can find there are a large number of organizations that we should be also interfacing with, and they are likely connected to a large number of organizations around the world. I also want to mention as well the Convention on Biological Diversity, CBD Aichi Biodiversity Targets. These are a related number of targets that one can see some alignment as well with the Sustainable Development Goals. There are actually 20 targets, and these targets can be aligned with as well the SDGs and are important for understanding for those who may wish to attend these types of conferences. We should also, I also wanted to mention the related Nagoya Protocol on Access and Benefit Sharing is also known in its full name, Nagoya Protocol on Access to Genetic Resources and the Fair and Equitable Sharing of Benefits arising from their utilization to the Convention on Biological Diversity, which provides a legal framework for the effective implementation of the 3 objectives of the CBD, including the fair and equitable sharing of benefits arising out of the utilization of genetic resources. And so these are important protocols to understand for the members of our network as well. so they can align themselves with these existing protocols that we have not talked about in the past, but I believe are quite important as we move forward. So I wanted to mention as well, who is the Global Unity Network. We have a mission about bringing existing local, regional, national, and international organizations together for the common purpose of implementing the global goals locally or globally. The common purpose is to establish a globalized, productive, compassionate, collaborative, regenerative economy that leaves no one behind through the implementation of the AHIABGA Unity Net process of globalization of the global goals in order to start designing and building in our local communities these productive, open source, regenerative, climate smart infrastructure solutions wherever we may live in the world. So the regenerative climate smart infrastructure solutions established as businesses starting with cooperative community unity garden learning centers built and run by local community by local community co-ops of local female and feminist humanitarian entrepreneurs who are implementing the local regenerative solutions to achieving the global goals for the ultimate purpose of educating and training an entire generation of young people and families in the concepts, systems, infrastructure, management practices, and ethics of a globalized, productive, compassionate, collaborative, regenerative economy that leaves no one behind. Again, in the chat, you will find some links to our Global Unity Network. And so the message of UnityNet involves a change in the paradigm of dialogue, always remembering that we're fighting with peace and not for it, which means using higher consciousness in achieving our objectives. We're not fighting a war with each other to save the planet. We're making peace with the planet to save ourselves. The new strategy is being called the Gaia's Guitar strategy, will allow us to create a shared consciousness with peacemaking that is more contagious than fear and war. The message is centered around the 4 elements and symbols of peace that we should incorporate into every local community net or Unity Net community garden. These include the youth peace gardens established in each local community, along with the trees of peace and reconciliation planted in the gardens, the indigenous unity flags also flying either in the gardens or location nearby, and the peace poles erected in conspicuous locations with high foot traffic within or next to the gardens. So these symbols of UnityNet Peace Gardens Network include the community Unity Garden Learning Centers, allowing us to create these sacred spaces in all our local communities, mapped onto the UnityNet Sacred Site and Watershed Map, symbolic of the community of humanity coming together in peace, reconciliation, forgiveness, and the restoration of our relationship with Mother Earth and each other, because this is the only way that we'll be able to ensure that all of humanity and all our relations will be able to survive in the climate of the future. Again, in the chat, you will find additional links. So I do want to mention as well our primary sponsor, the main sponsor of our programs for the past year or more will continue into 2023, Andrew Networks, our door opening network of the Global Unity Network of Networks. We will be hosting our Thursday Zoom calls as well, continuing until the end of 2023. Andrew's also hosting additional events like these Youth Peace Week events, Drawdown Markham monthly events, and their promotional services include rebroadcast of any production-ready presentations or other citizen media with the theme of localization, re-indigenization, resilience, local implementation of the Sustainable Development Goals, which are broadcast on AHIABGA.org domain, redirected to a number of other social media sites like UCIT-TV and others. So Andrew Networks, a brand domain name owned by RXTC Export Trading Company, comprising the various social media channels, including TRN TV, Universal Citizens Media Networks, Conversations with Andrew Williams Jr., and many others. He's not only our primary sponsor supporting the promotional ecosystem for the UnityNet initiative, including the Indigenous Global Unity Summit, which continues again until the end of 2023. He's also, as we call him, our yes, yes, yes partner, helping to open doors so that the members of our network are able to discover their inner selves and passions, where Andrew Networks is working with the people who occupy the various nodes of our Global Unity Network so they can come together with the people of the network, acting like a net to support the dreams of our members so they can leverage those passions, transform their visions of a better future for themselves and their communities into a reality that makes sense for both themselves and their communities, however they might define what that better future is collectively as they seek to work together in partnership and leave no one behind. Again, in the chat, you'll find additional information about Andrew Networks. I do want to mention who I am. Lloyd Halferty, Chief Ecosystem Director, Program Development Director, and Sustainable Society Consultant for AHIABGA University. They are headquartered in Manhattan, New York. I am in Ontario, in the city of Markham, in the Don River watershed, German Mills Creek sub-watershed, draining into Lake Ontario. That is the last of the North American Great Lakes in the Greater Toronto area of Ontario, Canada, Turtle Island here in North America. AHIABGA University is a private 501(c)(3) nonprofit company, member of the UN Global Compact, a UN academic impact member and partner. We were created to help empower global populations to reestablish a sustainable balance with their local environments. We do this by designing and implementing projects that support a strong and diversified local economy, while integrating core sustainable technologies and infrastructure into the communities in areas of renewable energy, high density food growth solutions, and systems for sustainably managing local waste streams and protecting local water resources. We are supported by over 375 companies whose products and technologies we employ, but we also do support local education and training in the construction, deployment, and maintenance of all the various integrated solutions for achieving these closed loop systems that support self-sufficient and sustainable communities. Again, in the chat, you'll find my connections information. I do also want to mention We AHIABGA Global Cooperation Turtle Island, of which I am co-founder and administrator. They are an international civil society organization seeking to undertake life value peace education done in the context of life learning gardens. Again, you will find that link in my own information that I just posted in the chat. I am also a Goodwill Ambassador for the 5 Points Youth Foundation, located in Los Angeles, with this portfolio that covers Canada, La Francophonie, the Commonwealth of Nations, and Turtle Island communities. As a member of AHIABGA, we are seeking to empower our communities to engage with royal, indigenous, and tribal leadership, as well as helping local communities establish interfaith neighborhood academic and business collaboratives, or INAB collaboratives, that come together and pledge to support all of the local humanitarian entrepreneurs who are globalizing the global goals, starting, of course, with the Sustainable Development Goals, while seeking ways of leaving no one behind. Again, in the chat, you'll find some links to the Ad Hoc International Advisory. So I am also the co-founder of the Global Unity Network, also known as UnityNet, established by UnityNet International, which helped to create UnityNet Africa and Diaspora and all the other global groups in Asia and Americas and Europe. We are a network of people and organizations supporting the AHIABGA UnityNet process of globalization of the global goals, currently the SDGs, and the global transition to this globalized, productive, compassionate, collaborative, regenerative economy that leaves no one behind. We are creating a global empowerment network of professionals in regenerative development to support all of our members, including the female and feminist humanitarian entrepreneurs who are helping to implement the various local regenerative climate smart solutions that are required to achieve a productive, compassionate, collaborative, regenerative economy that leaves no one behind, where humanitarian entrepreneurship is defined as a social enterprise that focuses on the delivery of the various solutions for achieving these sustainable development goals globally. UnityNet has a mandate to educate our youth so that they know how to build this regenerative climate smart infrastructure in all of their local communities. Our role at UnityNet is to establish the hybrid infrastructure necessary for delivering the learning programs, the education and training that provides all the local humanitarian entrepreneurs with the appropriate knowledge, tools, and processes that they need to help implement the global goals. Currently, of course, the Sustainable Development Goals. To do this locally within their own communities with the overarching goal of leaving no one behind. I wanted to note as well the existing social media we have, the LinkedIn, the WhatsApp, the Facebook. The things that we are using are the placeholders as we build the global Unity network, provide us and prepare us to launch. We'll eventually get all the people, companies, and nodes of the network onto this interchange for Peace VCN, where they'll be able to gain access to many more tools and services that are available there, and where we can much more easily collaborate in order to locally implement all of the globally coordinated real-world events, projects, enterprises, and of course, the infrastructure. Again, we'll find some links in the chat. I do want to mention as well, UnityNet was created to showcase global cooperation for the implementation of the local regenerative solutions to achieving the global goals, starting with the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, with, of course, SDG 17 being partnerships for the goals. So our purpose is to help uplift the traditionally marginalized communities that are mostly being left behind, because the existing economic paradigm is focused on making money for those who are already wealthy, by extracting resources through the exploitation, usually over-exploitation of people and the natural world, and therefore the majority of people on Earth are mostly being ignored by our existing highly competitive economy. So our focus is on the billions of people who exist or subsist on the economic sidelines, where we intend to start our work by helping local communities deliver the various local regenerative and climate smart enterprise solutions that people and communities in some of the least developed countries, communities, and local economies require in order to thrive. As the entry point, we are focused in particular on the communities that are the most food insecure. Again, we'll find additional links in the chat. So UnityNet is promoting delivery of our practical solutions for achieving the global goals, starting with the SDGs up until 2030, by focusing on the tools of humanitarian entrepreneurship, focusing on the female and feminist humanitarian entrepreneurs and enterprises, using hybrid virtual and hands-on education and training and learning programs, platforms, and curricula, with the primary focus on delivery of the humanitarian entrepreneurship skills training in these practical settings. In other words, practical learning, along with leveraging open source regenerative climate smart infrastructure solutions to remotely assist local INAP collaborative teams, establish local collaborative open source Unity Garden classrooms in all the local communities around the world. The Unity Garden classrooms, set up in collaboration with existing schools in local communities, can be used for the local and remote and virtual delivery of the practical learning programs for all of our FFEG members, so they can learn how to grow, process, cook, market, sell, and trade the various types of regenerative climate smart food and related nutritional and medicinal and other types of locally produced regenerative products, both within their own local communities, as well as regionally, nationally, continentally, or even internationally, in order to produce income and greater prosperity for themselves and for the people in their local communities, for all people on all continents, with again the intention of leaving no one behind. Again, you will find additional links in the chat to our Smart Cities Network, which is related to the Unity Eco Village Network, which also has a node to produce hemp. So we have a hemp network along with a climate smart kitchens network as one of the types of Unity Garden classrooms. And then again, we have a clean cook stoves group for the types of devices that can be used for production of the climate smart food solutions. So the Global Unity Network, AHIABGA process of localization of the global goals is intended to help everyone in each of their own local communities establish these local teams of humanitarian entrepreneurs, as well as the local community empowerment network, the INAB collaboratives, that will provide support and ensure the success of the local cooperative humanitarian enterprises who are building these Unity Gardens. So the Unity Gardens are intended to be established in each local community across the global network, most likely starting in Africa, but also here in North America and in Asia and Oceania as well. The process of establishing the local INAB collaboratives is done by taking part in the Abraham Project, where we plant trees of peace and reconciliation and do ceremonies, establish the Youth Peace Gardens. This was all started Sunday, June 5th of this year on World Environment Day, but continues throughout the planting seasons locally wherever we are. So some communities also establish twin trees of peace and reconciliation, twinned Unity Gardens, twinned Youth Peace Gardens, and twinned INAB collaboratives as well. The twinning or trinning or quadrinning or more done through the CTP program, process of twinning the local community Unity Garden humanitarian enterprises, twinning the local community INAB collaboratives, and building a global network of local INAB collaboratives who are all members of each local community empowerment network, interconnected, watching over each other, talking to each other at the global level, where each local INAB collaborative will have a diverse set of members from 7 different sectors of every community, including public, private, civil society, academic, interfaith, finance, and orange economy. All of the members will also be watching, promoting, and helping each other, supporting the local female and feminist humanitarian entrepreneurs in each local community, who will be empowered by all of the members of the Global Unity Network, where all the activities are also intended to be transparent to all members of the global network, including all members of the local INAB collaboratives, who will be accountable to and for the success of the local collaborative Unity Garden humanitarian enterprise in each of their own local communities. Again, related to this network are some other important nodes of our network that I put into the chat for reference. I do as well want to mention the INAB collaboratives established at the local level. We're leveraging our process of community engagement, the community engagement done initially through the Trees of Peace and Reconciliation tree planting ceremonies and the UnityNet Indigenous Unity flag raising ceremonies as well. This is followed by ongoing community engagement and interaction through the regularly scheduled events throughout the year, including the coordinated Bubble Fun festivals and sports and dancing and arts done in collaboration with the local INAB collaborative members, along with the CTP program of twinning the community activities and the community organized tree planting and other local regenerative and public community infrastructure development projects and events, along with the Tea Diplomacy Initiative virtual community conversations on topics like peace, regeneration, reconciliation, and forgiveness, and the Dream Boards initiative done in collaboration with the C4 group members and others, along with identification of and engagement of local talent, artists, creative people in the orange economy for the purpose of promoting and showcasing their talent, and especially as they promote their art through the globalization of global goals and the achievement of a compassionate, collaborative, regenerative economy that leaves no one behind, especially during any one of our periodic sunlight spectacle and other edutainment events that may be done throughout the year. We are open to other programs and activities that can be developed in the context of the Climate Smart Gardens and Forests, the Climate Smart Kitchens, the Wheel of Life Farms, and the CSAF centers, also known as Spark Learning Centers or Climate Smart Learning Centers. Again, in the chat, you will find a link to the discussion group for the Unity Tree of Peace and Reconciliation tree plantings, along with links to the International Fun Festivals What's Up chat group and the coordinated Greater UnityNet management team and supporters, which can be found on the Global Unity Pandemic group. I wanted to mention as well, the Bubble Fun Festivals are events that were first promoted by members of the PodNet cooperative organization which is based in Iceland, which is represented by Mr. Aubrey Zhang from the Pyropod company here in Canada. Sorry, the members of this discussion group are here to help coordinate the Bubble Fun festivals, along with teams in multiple countries across multiple continents, part of the Global Unity Network mandate to globally deliver affordable, accessible, effective learning programs, the virtual and hands-on education and training in open source regenerative climate smart infrastructure solutions that help humanity to transition into a regenerative economy, first through the achievement of the Sustainable Development Goals, but ultimately as the world transitions our economy toward a set of regenerative development goals as well. Again, you will find links to the CTP program in the chat, along with the Tea Diplomacy Initiative groups as well, in finally the UnityNet Green Boards Network discussion groups as well. So now, with that opening, we can move forward and start our Youth Peace Week special presentation about World Mental Health, or sorry, the World Civility Index. So this event includes a presentation by Patrick Chun from the International Soft Skills Standards and Testing Organization, IITTI. And this is now a discussion about the World Civility Index. So as we move forward, thank you. I will pass along control over to Patrick so that he can make his presentation. Thank you very much, Patrick.
Hi, Loy. Hi, everybody. Thank you very much. I'm going to be talking about how the what they call the World Civility Index can perhaps help out with the Global Unity Network, which is a big organization with, like Andrew was saying, a network of network. So the idea, if I can share my screen, okay, let me see. Is it possible to share my screen?
Let me just check to make sure that you have access.
Mm-hmm.
So participants, Patrick.
On my screen, it says you cannot share your screen while other participant is sharing. So
apparently I have no ability to change your status to allow you to share. So that would have to be done by Andrew.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Hopefully Andrew is still
Lloyd,
with us.
just stop sharing your screen. Just stop, because your screen is still shared. So stop sharing, and then he will probably...
Okay, perhaps that could work.
Okay.
I'll do that.
Okay.
Can you try again, Patrick?
Yep. I can see mine. Okay, great.
Okay, thank you. All right.
Okay. I'll jump right into it as to what the World Civility Index is all about. This is the core of it, and it started off with what we call a reading program, and we ask participants to read an article or watch a video 5 minutes every day, and that's all it takes. So one read per day, and they can earn points on the World Civility Index, personal index, so they can, they get a cell phone, they can actually show off on their own cell phone. They have earned 1 point and so on. So we encourage people to take a photo of them with their phone. That's our signature. And they can show it off to their employers. They can show it off to their girlfriend, boyfriends, family, and landlord, and so on, to get a better rental arrangement, so on. So that's what the index is all about. It is somewhat, people ask, what is this World Civility Index? So we say it is somewhat similar to your personal credit rating, but instead of measuring how well you can pay your bills, it measures how much manners you have, how much civility, how much empathy that you have. So that is the World Civility Index in a nutshell, and that's it. It's very simple. Now the other thing is the other way that it can also work in earning your World Civility Index. It's another way. Let me see. I'm going to share my screen here. That is how the other way that people can earn their World Civility Index. And that is through what we call an activity. And so activity could be many things. It can be a seminar, it can be a field trip, it can be workshop, it can be event, like what Lori was alluding to. When they plant trees around different establishments, maybe companies, then they can all earn World Civility Index credential, World Civility Index points. So at the end of the planting tree activity, we're going to show them a QR code, just like what you see here, and people can scan it, and then that's it. They earn 1 point on the World Civility Index, for example. And if they do other activities, that can also be arranged where participants can earn the World Civility Index. So those are the two main ways that people can earn the World Civility Index. And that's it. So it's very simple in that regard there. The third thing I want to show you would be what are some of the topics right now that are available. And let me show you that screen so that you can you can see. Okay, so these are some of the sample articles and videos that that you can access right now. You can access right now. For example, there are some general topics, and there are also some topics for youth, and there are also topics for businesses. So for business, for example, we talk about like how can you write a cold email, just like a cold call to somebody you don't know, and that can actually get answered. There are techniques for doing something like that. So that is business oriented. For youth, there are a lot of awareness issue. How they can actually use maggots, for example, to create a business that you can actually do. So those are the kind of things that we want to be eye-opening for the youth, and that jives with what Lori and UnityNet is trying to do too. So as soon as they add articles or videos, we can put it onto the World Civility Index so that the world can actually read about what Lori is doing and generate awareness. And by doing that, we give them the credential that these people are more spiritual. They care about what is around the world and so on. So moving up to some of the core stuff that the World Civility Index started off are some of the self-awareness, the personal branding, emotional intelligence, social etiquette, and so on. For example, there's this video about Angela Merkel, the former German chancellor, how she rolls her eyes when she talks to Putin, and that she should not do that because that's not very conducive to creating peace and harmony in that regard. So those are all the little things. We talked about mask etiquette during the COVID-19 with one of our longtime trainers, Jacqueline Whitmore in Florida. She talks about when you should wear your masks, when you can take them off. So those are some of the new etiquette that you need to be aware of. And now some people have been telling me, oh, Patrick, you know, etiquette is an old school thing. And I counter that by saying that a lot of etiquette are nonverbal communication. So it's really about how you communicate with others without opening your mouth. And that's why etiquette is important, because if you want to get things done, you need to have people to be on your good side. And a lot of CEOs and upper management, they actually have these kind of trainings. They actually learn how to have dining etiquette, which fork to use. You don't want to eat your neighbor's bread, which glass of water you can drink out of, and so on. Now, to a lot of people, to some people, it's superficial. That is not important. How can it be conducive to peace? That is not important, but it is important that there are certain rules that the society goes by. And unless you know them, and you can break them once you know them, you don't know them, and you're not the quote unquote in crowd in some ways. And that means you're not doing your best to try to make other people feel comfortable. So the main idea about this whole civility and so on is it's not just about being a nice guy. It's about making other people feel comfortable. That is part of the care for people kind of theme that threads through this World Civility Index. And other titles, for example, how do you walk? Walking is part of your personal branding. And so there's a video by Carolina Tan, also another one of our longtime trainers. She actually demonstrates how you can walk for a man is different from a woman. And so those are the kind of things that we talk about. Emotional intelligence, of course, that's a big thing. One of the things, for example, is when Elon Musk or Steve Jobs, how do they respond when somebody tried to insult them? When Steve Jobs went back to Apple after he got kicked out and then got invited back, somebody from the audience asked a very cynical, insulting question. And so that was in front of everybody. It was recorded. All the stakeholders, like shareholders and some customers and employees from Apple's, they're all there. And so everybody was listening to how Steve Jobs responded to that question. Now, so that was a moment that was worth $1 trillion, because if he didn't respond or acted in a way that people would find agreeable, well, he can lose everything. He could lose a lot of credibility. The media, the article writers will say negative things about Steve, but he handled it brilliantly. He handled it in a way that even the person who tried to insult him was saying that, wow, yes, Steve is my man. He is our leader at Apple. And so that leads to how he can push iPhone and other ideas down the line. And so that is the kind of brilliance Steve Jobs showed. And so we collated those kind of soft skills that they don't teach you in engineering schools, but they are critically important to engineers, to technology people, and company people all around the world would use or could use something like this, so that they can use it the next day and become a better leader, better manager, better team workers in all the environments. And again, I want to bring it back to Global Unity Network, because Global Unity Network are trying to be doing many things that are very meaningful. And those are the kind of things that if people can write articles about it or take a short videos, we can put it onto this list there, and people can access it, read it, and earn credentials based on something like that. So that is what the World Civility Index is all about. It's very simple little program. And to wrap it up, there are one more thing I'll share with you. And that is one of the case study with Carolina Tan in Asia there. She got retained by multinational as a soft skill specialist, and she delivers her seminars online and in person, and people can earn the World Civility Index. People are earning the World Civility Index, and there's a little collage of one of the session she has, and people got this +1, +1, +1, +1. They all earn 1 point, and they can show it right on their cell phone. And so those are the situations that are already happening. So with the Global Unity Net, we can do something very similar to something like this. And before I wrap up, there's an example of what Andrew has been educating me on, and that is about company reporting. One of the things that the World Civility Index is capable of and has been doing very recently is to help company into writing their annual report. So how can company not only do good, but also look good, which is important in front of financial analysts, institutional investors like pension funds and so on. They need to find out whether a company is really doing good and not just hand waving and just saying they're doing good, but something that is from a neutral party. Somebody like the World Civility Index can actually give them a score. How many points have their employees earned throughout the year, for example. So we give them an average score of all the employees, what they have done throughout a year, for example. And for a company with an average score of 138, that's a pretty good score. That means, for example, an average employee had read 138 articles or watch videos and so on, or other activities. So they have been participating at a very high level. So, and that is all employees. That's not just a small group, but all employees. So if we're talking about Nike with 300,000 employees, we're talking about 300,000 employees, each doing something about their own internal civility issues, their own refinement, their own spiritual search in the answer, and helping them in handling difficult situations and so on. So the World Civility Index, actually, when companies do that, we tell them that they are killing 2 birds with 1 stone. Not only are they helping their own internal company culture, which every CEOs want to do, they also are making their annual report or the corporate social responsibility, or the latest incarnation called ESG, the environment, social, and governance. They make the ESG look really good. And when companies come in and rate them and give them a score, they look at this having the World Civility Index, they say, it is a score from a third-party entity. So this is something that they cannot fake, that they cannot cheat or lie. So this is something that keeps everybody honest in that regard. And this is something that we can also do with what Lloyd has been talking about in something like that. So companies can do something like this. We can supply these kind of services to many companies, to all the companies around the world in this regard. So we can have commercial companies that provide these kind of services and earn fees, earn money based on something like this. That can feed into Global Unity Net, feed into World Civility Index, and all the stakeholders that are involved. Okay, and so this is my talk. And if there's any questions or comments and so on, I welcome that. And Lloyd can take the feedbacks, and we'll get back to you as soon as I can. So thank you very much, Lloyd.
So that was perfect. Thank you, Patrick. It's exactly 11 o'clock here. So we have been able to do this within less than an hour.
Less than an
in
hour.
total for the whole presentation, my own and your own. And so I think it's really, I think something that we would like to move forward with you to deliver on this. Actually, there was a person I haven't heard from for a while on our call yesterday during the IGU summit. And so she is working on a platform that will allow, I hope, us to collaborate also with her. And so there was a discussion yesterday actually as well. I was trying to find it earlier, but I will follow up with you afterwards. I'd like to have a discussion with you about that concept. So we have already talked about potentially, of course, approaching all of the UN Global Compact members, starting here in Canada. Wherever we might want to approach them with regard to the establishment of the Youth Peace Gardens at their headquarters, along with the trees and the peace bowls and the flags, and then having a conversation, of course, with their CEOs, board of directors, about your programs, implementing it for all their employees as well, so that we can cross collaborate and really build programs that can provide additional points and opportunities for their employees to gain those points and really be able to report back and provide those, like you said, the annual reports. The ESG, I think, is there are standards being set on what are going to be, especially I think Europe is far ahead in the game in terms of mandating in some cases, in some countries, I believe, that corporations of a certain size at least need to have this. And even smaller businesses are being encouraged to do many of these reporting now. And it's not just the big companies anymore that are doing this. So I think there's eventually we're going to have a conversation, hopefully with the UN and up to ideally the highest levels, so they can understand the integrated programs that we're building. So I'm hoping we might have some introductions from others as well, and their own thoughts and comments on this as well. Edwin, Mark, Rose, and Heinrich are also on our call today. And if you have not put your own information into the chat, I'd see Rose has put her information for us to connect with her afterwards. As I was mentioning as well, if you would like to put up your hand and say a few words, you can do that. So I'm seeing as well Sophia Pereira is coming on our call now as well. So if anybody would like to make a few comments, I don't know if Sophia was on earlier or not, if she was able to see any of the presentation by Patrick that was just done. But we will continue to have these conversations and build our ecosystem that will allow us to ideally change the culture, which is ultimately, I think, what we are slowly attempting to do, to change from a culture of, I think, conflict and violence to a culture of peace. And this, again, was something that one of my colleagues, Mitch Gold, has been trying to move forward for such a long time as well. The culture of peace was the theme, actually, I believe, of one of the years at the United Nations, if I remember. Actually, I could even go back and take a look at the culture of peace. Google search, which is, of course, the common way that we do things nowadays to find our information. But we need to understand what we're searching for in many cases. So the culture of peace, if you look on the International Day of Peace, the United Nations defines the culture of peace as a set of values, attitudes, modes of behavior and ways of life that reject violence and prevent conflicts by tackling their root causes to solve problems through dialogue and negotiation among individual groups. It actually goes on
That's
further.
a very good point. Sorry to interrupt, Lloyd. That's a very good point. I think I want to take credit for this, but somebody from our group actually thought about it first, and she was saying, you know, what is the root cause of this, and so that was Susan Henderson, and we said, well, what was the root cause of this? She said, well, the root cause is not because there's no political will of you know, politicians trying to do climate change or stopping human trafficking and so on. It is because the general population don't care. It is about indifference. People just don't know about it. They are busy with their own lives and doing their own little thing, but they don't see that. Our education system was built for people to learn about math and thermodynamics and finance and so on. All the hard skills are what schools are doing, and they don't really have a formal framework of doing something like this at school. And so when we have an app like what we do now, and we can share with pretty much everybody around the world, then it's a different story. So the way how it can be done, for example, is, can we work backwards? If we want to have solve climate change, then what do we need to do? Well, people need to feel safe and respected and comfortable within their workspace and within the community. So having peace and civility is a requirement if you want to have people look into the bigger picture about civility and all that. So when you have this peace and civility, then how can you achieve that? Well, you need to educate people on something like this. And as soon as you talk about when you want to educate people like that, well, how do you measure it? How can they show they have done something like this? That's the motivation of the World Civility Index. Is this what we call the boring measurement? It is nothing but just a number, really. So, but hey, boring is the new sexy. Just like being a geek is the new cool kid. And so by having this measurement, then you can train, then you can educate people en masse, all the population. Just do a cell phone. You don't need to do anything more. And then when you can achieve something like this, then you have peace and civility. People feel respected. They know how to talk to one another much better. And then they can talk about the big issues, the really hard issues about climate change, about indigenous rights, and so on. So those are the kind of steps that goes through some of my people's mind, my team's mind in that regard. That's the root cause within some of us.
So obviously, I think there is very, very strong alignment. So I put in some additional links in the chat as well around some of the history, action areas for a culture of peace, and then a definition. But you can see as well, if I read this text here, it says the United Nations culture of peace is defined as a set of values, attitudes, modes of behavior, and ways of life that reject violence and prevent conflicts by tackling their root causes to solve problems through dialogue and negotiation among individuals, groups, and nations. Was founded over 60 years ago, and UNESCO asserted that since wars begin in the minds of men, it is in the minds of men that the defenses of peace must be constructed. So this is ultimately about changing our attitudes, changing our minds around how do we deal with conflict, how do we deal with adversity, how do we deal with ourselves and among ourselves and understand ourselves as, again, this is coming back to the We Energize Global Cooperation Turtle Island concept of peace education done so that we can understand that we are part of nature as well. We are part of all of creation, and that we need to care for Mother Earth. We need to care for nature. We need to care for each other as part and as a species that is part of the web of life. And so that is why I still focused very much on the biodiversity networks, on the care of Mother Earth programs that we try to deliver through these Unity Garden learning networks and learning gardens. So as we move forward, we can hopefully teach a new generation about how they can care for each other, care for the earth, and care for all of creation. And so that is the big challenge, I think, of our generation.
You quoted the concept of culture of peace. I'm reading it right now. One of the things that I think is very important is you quoted about this peace and harmony is a long-term process. It's a lot of people are saying, well, you know, we can do a concert or something like that, which is good. It's not a bad thing, but it's not enough. They need a constant reminder. Otherwise, people forget very, very easily. So yeah, long term is very important.
Well, and it also comes from a generational shift. If the young people are taught, I was actually thinking this morning about how children are generally taught fairy tales and read stories and all of these stories that they're told from the very young age. But I remember when I was a young child, my father would read to me from he would read stories to me, from his university science textbooks. But he would read it in a very fun way. And it would be a story about, for instance, amoebas and parameciums. I remember those words very well because I was only about 4 or 5 years old when I learned about amoebas and parameciums.
Oh.
And it was from his university science textbook. What he would read these stories to me. Wow. As bedtime stories from the science textbooks, not from the fairy tale books, from these children's books that are often used. Instead, he would read from his science textbooks.
Wow.
But he would read them like fairy tale stories in the voice of a fairy tale story. But he would be teaching me something. Yeah. He would be teaching me university level knowledge, but it as a story. And so it doesn't really matter also the content. We don't need to keep our stories simple for children to understand. We just need to deliver it in a way that makes them interested in whatever you're talking about. And it's how you read the story that makes a difference. It's just like the way how you respond to the insult, like your story of the Apple CEO, right? Yeah, Steve Jobs. Yeah. And it's how he responds. It's how he interacts with his audience. And it's an understanding of knowing your audience and then delivering the content in a way that makes them engaged. And so that is a skill, I think, that can be inculcated through the programs you are delivering through this index that you are developing.
And that is something that the index alone, the index is only a container. The way how I look at it, how we look at it, the content, like you said, the content is the gold, and that has to be done by a lot of people. I mean, there are a lot of very talented people, companies, and so on. They can be all part of this as part of Global Unity Net. in creating these kind of content about indigenous rights, about their histories and so on, maybe even making a very compelling video about what it was like, so that people can read like a story, just like your dad talked about amoeba and paramecium. I haven't been speaking those words for ages, amoeba and paramecium, since I was in high school. Yeah.
Yeah, I literally learned those words from these stories when I was like 4.
Wow. Wow. Yeah. Yeah. I think if somebody who's talented enough to present it in a way that a 4-year-old can understand, that is really cool. That's cool. Yeah. Mhm.
And so I think that what we can do possibly is to follow up as well in engaging with these peace organizations. So I've been involved with Science for Peace for many, many years, decades actually. And it was, as I noted in the chat, I put today, actually, it's new information that I put today. I looked back at the history of my own interactions through Science for Peace and realized that the president of Science for Peace at that time was encouraging me and was working with me. So Meta Spencer was working with me to try to create this whole ecosystem of the climate smart food and the program we were talking about in our working group. And so she was actually at that time really trying to make this happen as a tool for disseminating this whole concept of the culture of peace. How do we create a culture of peace? By leveraging, in this case, food as a universal thing that all people do is eat. So that was the original concept, was how do we utilize something that every single person on earth does every single day. And the idea was food is something, or people eat every day. Food is something that's universally a human attribute, as we eat. Can we leverage that to deliver the messages of the culture of peace? And that was the original concept. And of course, we were thinking, okay, can we do more? Can we tackle climate change, like these existential problems and existential threats to humanity and our livelihoods? So can we do that? Okay, let's create something where we can leverage the food system to tackle this big, massive problem of an imbalance of carbon in our ecosphere. And that's what climate change is. That's what global warming is. The problem is an imbalance of carbon. The carbon's in the wrong place. It's not like there's more carbon in the ecosphere or in the lithosphere. It's just in the air instead of in the ground, and it should be in the ground. That's where Gaia said it should be. And so Earth's processes put the carbon into the Earth and trapped it away indefinitely, as a way to make sure that we're not overheating our planet. And so now what humans have done, of course, is dug up all of that carbon, burned it, and put it back into the atmosphere. So the Earth is going to have to rebalance itself. It won't be in our lifetimes, likely, that we'll be able to actually do anything about this big problem. But we need to educate and train an entire generation on how to do it, but also change the mindset of, yes, we need an intergenerational project to continue this. We needed to change the paradigm of how we think about how we're even relating with ourselves in a domestic environment, but also in our business environments, to change that whole paradigm of this is going to be a multi-generational project to reverse climate change. That it's going to be our great grandchildren that may come back to that original climate that we had in 1900, right? Before the Industrial Revolution. But it's going to be a long time there. But until that time, we're going to have to adapt to what is going to change, because it is going to change, and there's no stopping it, there's no reversing it, even with all whatever the rhetoric around carbon capture and storage and all this stuff that likely will not be done, just because of the economics of it doesn't work, and the scale at which it needs to be done doesn't work. But we can adapt, we can change our paradigm of the systems we're building, but we also need to change that culture and say, look, this is an ongoing process that we need to do in all sorts of different ways. But one of the ways we can do that is sort of this idea of one meal at a time, this climate smart food, but leveraging that system to change the culture and create a culture of peace rather than a culture of conflict, war, and always competing against each other rather than working together.
Yeah, leveraging the system, picking up from you just talked about, and that's in my head, and that's why I think what Andrew Williams was talking about, the ESG. He was the one who educated me on ESG, saying, well, Patrick, this is something important, pay attention. So and I study a lot, and I said, wow, this is great. You know, what Andrew was saying is, with the Unity Network and the World Civility Index, we can actually got a lot of companies to buy into something like this, because they need to look good on the ESG. And if they can have this kind of rating, that would be really good, because they got a number that they cannot fake, and every year they can improve on that number. And so with the Global Unity Net, you can produce those kind of content. You already have a lot of content. We can feed that into a lot of the corporate people and their families, and that means we're talking about the society. So when we have a lot of people being aware of something like this, well, now then I think what you're talking about in changing the culture by leveraging the system, that's it. We can leverage the system, because company need the ESG. It's not because they are any nicer than the next guy, but because they need to do the ESG to make it look good, to get investors. They need to work with Global Unity Network. And so when that happens, then we can achieve the results, which, you know, I don't see anybody, most people would not reject that. But there's a chat up from Edwin Street from Portsmouth in Virginia. Perhaps Laura, you can you can respond to that.
Edwin Street.
Yes. In our chat.
Yeah, I'm just looking.
Yeah, and he was talking about, is there any kind of larger systemic global obstacles? And what is your thought on that?
Well, I think I'm not sure exactly. Perhaps Edwin could unmute himself and explain a little bit more about what is, if this is a question or a comment. So, Edwin,
yes, yes. Hello.
Yeah. Thank you, Edwin.
Yes. Hello, everyone, and thank you for hosting this talk. Hi. Hi. So from a remedial standpoint, you know, just trying to understand the structure of organizations like the Unity Network and the purpose of them, and the topic is on a lot of people's minds and hearts, but sometimes it's hard to understand what the issues are and what the obstacles are. So even, you know, me chiming into this group is still a lot of, you know, vocabulary and structure of this type of work that I don't understand. I've always been at the community level, and, you know, not a lot in a, I haven't worked in a lot of large organizations that work in the political arena, or anything like that. So the politics of this and things are confusing. And so when I'm speaking with people and I'm hosting groups, and it's, we're on a micro level, so we're just feet, boots on the ground. But we want to have more of an impact. We want to do the things, but the work to be done seems subjective. You don't know whether you should, work in politics. You don't know if you should stay boots on the ground. If you should integrate, with global networks like this to make an impact. And so what it's hard to understand is, like, what's the other than spiritual, and what's the large antagonist? Is it money? Is it politics? Is it power? What hinders us from having this kind of civil civil interactions with each other from a management standpoint, where places that we work, from our leadership standpoint, our organizational, our governmental organizations, like what are the monsters? Why is it so difficult to break through, to teach this to our children and to change the culture?
Well, if I could make a comment on that, I think for me, one of the biggest obstacles, if you want to say, or antagonistic aspects, is the culture of competition. Because we are taught from a fairly young age to be competitive. And so you can see in our logo a very prominent word called Ubuntu. This is a cultural framework that comes from Africa, that the origin of which is probably ancient, and I don't know the history of that word and where it comes from, but it is an embodiment of this change in the culture that we need. Whereas we have built an entire society around competing with each other. We have built an entire economy around competing with each other and being the best. I mean, it is good to be the best. There's this concept called co-opetition that I mentioned quite often, where it is good to have sports. It is good to have competition in the sense of trying to excel, but not every aspect of society needs to function around competition. Competition doesn't need to be the be-all and end-all of all things that human beings do. We don't need to compete in order to survive. In fact, we're reaching a point in history, I believe, where competition and this ever-present striving to be the best and always and richest and fastest and is actually detrimental to even our own survival as a species. Is if it's dominance always over nature, if it's dominance always over others, if it's marginalization of others and the destruction of the biosphere for our own personal enrichment, to be better than others, to have more than others, to be richer than others, and to always compete. And that's the culture of competition. If that's our only culture, I think that is going to be our death ultimately. And you can almost see it in what's happening now in Ukraine with President Putin of Russia. He has no escape from this what he's done, and now his only reaction is threats and more threats. Now threatening even Joe Biden, saying recently that we're on the brink of nuclear Armageddon because he cannot find his way. He thinks that the entire world is against him. And we're not exactly sending signals that we're not. the whole West, the NATO and everybody is saying, yes, well, we need to battle against this guy and defeat him. So he feels no out to what he has entered. And so we need to somehow, I'm not going to say I have any way to solve that particular issue, but I think we need to inculcate a new way of thinking around collaborative, community-based, local. Actually, this is the idea of UnityNet, is the globalization of the goals. And Edwin, you say you work at the local level. This is the idea that we are trying to implement, is creating local community partnerships. So this idea, and it wasn't, I think, shown in my slides in the opening, but the idea of creating the local partnerships to implement these global goals. The global culture is attached to those goals. So the goals are there in order to achieve the culture that we want to achieve, the culture of peace. How we achieve that and what are the goals we decide to use is also up for debate. So currently we have those 17 goals, but doesn't mean the next set of goals is going to be the same set of goals. It's going to be a different set of goals. And it will include other aspects that we probably are not addressing at this time through the existing set of goals. There may be spiritual goals in the next set of goals post 2030. And I'm actually hoping that that becomes part of the conversation we have, part of the education and training and teaching that we do through platforms like the World Civility Index programs, where we can start saying, look, this is not necessarily that we're always competing against each other in order to achieve a better world. We'll need to start collaborating a lot more. And this is embedded within SDG 17, partnerships for the goals. And that idea that we need to start working together toward a common, better future. But we can do it both from the top down, corporate boardrooms, governments, agencies, these corporations that we've created around the world, because governments are even corporations as well. But also from the grassroots, from the community levels, and that's where we're trying to create the network of community-based organizations, community-based partnerships that start to work with those major corporations, governments, and organizations, so we can work toward the commonly agreed to goals that we're trying to achieve, so we can create a better world for our children. That's ultimately what we're trying to achieve. And it is a complex thing that we're trying to build. Obviously, it's never been done before, but we are trying to do it anyways, because there really isn't that much of a choice at this point in time. With climate change, with energy, with wars, with conflict, with hunger, with all of these emerging issues, with the biodiversity crisis, all coming around at roughly the same time in this period of history, which was predicted so many years ago. I mean, if the original, what was it? The Club of Rome did their first simulation of the future of the world and what we're headed toward. And they said, we are headed toward collapse. And they said it would happen about right now. And they've said that this is what we're likely facing if we don't change our ways. And this is the part of the project of changing our ways.
I think we're living in a very unique generation. I think it is our generation that will decide whether we're going to survive or not. If you know, in 50 years, if we don't get our act together, we're not going to make it. At least most of us won't make it, with famine and so on. I was
I
attending
think more like 30 years.
30 years. Okay, 30 years. Yeah, I was too optimistic saying 50 years, but yeah, 30 years. So we don't have a lot of time, and so one of the obstacle, like I said, is people's indifference, ignorance, myself included, that I don't know a lot of the issues, but unless most people understand and be aware of it, then I think we can start talking, because then the right policymaker will be voted into the office to do the job that is necessary.
Well, I think that's actually another part of the problem, is we continuously look at our leaders to somehow solve our problems. And we use this system that was created of voting, and this where we're looking at these people at the high level, thinking that we're gonna vote for them and they're gonna somehow solve our problems. But actually, it's the other way around. We need to solve our own problems at the local community level, and put them to account to help us achieve what we want to achieve locally. And say, we elected you, you are responsible to us, not the other way around.
Yes.
We're not beholden to you just because we elected you to some sort of high position. You are responsible because this is democracy. You are responsible to us as a community. We as a community are coming together across all these sectors. We want to do this. We elected you to represent us at the high levels to get the funding so we can do what we want to do in our community. We are responsible together as a community to implement what we think is the solutions we need for our community. We want those elected leaders to follow, because they are followers ultimately. They should follow us as the community members who are collectively moving forward toward the better future we want for our own children. So we shouldn't be looking to them to solve it for us. We should be looking to them to help us achieve our collective local goals.
Yeah, so we really have to get the masses to be aware, so that they can call on their leaders, quote unquote, to do the right things. And
well, it's not about the leaders doing the right things. It's about the community doing the right things, and the leaders providing the tools that the community needs to implement those solutions themselves.
Yeah.
And so the leaders are not the ones solving anything. The leaders are the ones assisting the communities to achieve them.
One of the things I think I don't want to get into too much politics, but one of the things one of the secret is I've always been voting green, and my family has always been saying, Patrick, you're wasting your vote. It's green is never going to get in, and so on. But they're trying to do some of the green issues and so on. What do you think about something like this, Loy? Is that the right way?
Well, under our current, at least here in Canada, under the current first past the post system, it's correct. I actually ran as a Green Party member. I ran 3 times, twice federally and once provincially as a Green Party candidate. This was way back before Elizabeth May was leader. So I actually got invited to Elizabeth May's house in Ottawa. She cooked a meal for everybody. It was amazing. So I knew Elizabeth May personally when she became leader, because it was the parties to celebrate her when she became leader of the Green Party of Canada. And I was at her house in Ottawa on that night that she got nominated. And so I've been involved in the green politics for a while, but I'm not involved. This is not a political action committee. So UnityNet is not political at all. We support anybody who supports what we're doing. I've actually voted for every single party. I've voted Conservative, I've voted Liberal, I've voted Green, I've voted NDP. Here in Canada, those are the 4 main parties. And so for me, it doesn't matter what the political party is. And actually, that's part of the reason why we want to engage with our local community. The politics in Canada, at least, is there's 4 levels of government. There's municipal, there's regional, there's provincial, and there's national. We want to engage at the municipal level, or the regional level, but municipal mostly. The regional actually is made up of municipals. So, for instance, here in York Region, we have municipal elections. Actually, municipal elections are happening in about 2 weeks here, where we elect local municipal councillors. They have no party affiliation. Actually, under the rules of municipal elections, there is no party affiliation. You vote for the person and what they're going to do for your community.
Wow, this is good.
And so the idea is that we partner with the local community councils, we partner with the local community businesses, we partner with the local community chambers of commerce and the local Rotary clubs and the local, everything local. We create this local partnership to deliver the local community solutions in a system where there's no party politics, because that's what happens at municipal level. And I think that's the same across Canada. And so we don't have the party politics in play when we're talking about local regional councils. So regional councils made up of local representatives. So like here in York Region, there are 7, I believe, municipal councils, and they make up the regional council. So you elect your municipal leader and you elect your regional leader, who is also no political affiliation.
Excellent.
But then we also, of course, want to create the local partnership and then partner with the municipal or the provincial and federal as well as part of the partnership. But the main bulk of the partnership is done locally. So there is no party politics at that level at the local community.
Very good.
And so that eliminates that part. And I'm not in politics anymore. I'm not a politician. I ran for the Green Party back in like 1990.
Wow, this is wow.
And so yes, I know about the politics there, and our system of politics or political party affiliation is a little bit broken, just as it is in the US in many ways.
Yes.
And in many countries as well, because people toe the party line and just follow the party and whatever, and the leaders. Again, there's a cult of leadership, and you could see it very much in people like Donald Trump, right? Obviously, he's more of a cult than a political party.
Yes, he's an icon. Yes.
Well, I don't know if I'd call him that, but anyway, I'm not an American. I'm not going to dive into U.S. politics too much.
Okay. Yeah.
But certainly, what we're trying to do is this idea of creating the local partnerships along the 7 sectors, and then bringing all of these, what we call the INAB collaboratives, the Interfaith Neighborhood Academic and Business Collaboratives, the 7 sector partners that we create, and bringing them into a global network of local INAB collaboratives. And that's the idea, is all local communities can localize those goals, those SDGs, so saying, what are the solutions to achieving zero hunger? As an example, how do we achieve zero hunger in the city of Markham? There are hungry people, there are homeless people, there are people that are marginalized. How do we make sure that they are empowered? They have decent work, they have a decent home, they have all they need. And how can we lift them out of poverty? Because there are communities that are further behind than others. And that is the result of the competitive society we have created, where we're not going to look to those communities because they don't have money, right? They don't have money, so why would we market our products to them? I'm not going to get rich by marketing to them, right? Because they're poor, we don't care about them. That's the culture we have. And so the rich get richer, the poor get poorer, and we get these bigger divides in society as a result.
Yeah, very true. Yeah. It's yeah, politics is always getting in the way in many
Well,
levels.
I don't know if it's getting in the way. I think it's just the lens we use to look at politics.
Mm,
Politics can work, but we need to say we are the people that should be moving forward,
mm,
and whoever we elect as leaders
mm,
are really the followers. They
mm,
should be the ones helping us
mm,
to achieve what we want to achieve. So this is in fact a private sector initiative.
mm,
This unity network, right? It's not a political thing. We're not aligning ourselves with either green or liberal or conservative or whatever it is, the labels of these political entities that exist, because of the system we've created, right? We've adopted a system based on the original system of political parties, at least here in Canada, based on the original system they created in the UK, right, in England,
mm,
hundreds of years ago.
mm. Yes.
But we don't necessarily need that. I mean, obviously, the United States remade their political system, and many countries are doing so, right?
Mm.
And so now that you have these other systems of politics that are out there. So Andrew, you wanted to wrap things up?
Well, actually, just to let you know, we have about 10 minutes left, but I wanted to know if any of the your guests here had any comments about the World Civility Index or Patrick's last thoughts.
Absolutely.
Okay, so I was absolutely, if there's anybody that would like to make a few other comments as we wrap up today. I think it was a good discussion we've had so far, but we will definitely be moving forward with Patrick to try to engage in the conversations, especially I think one of the things I wanted to say just quickly was that because corporations, these private corporations, are so large, in some cases larger than countries, in terms of the amount of influence they have, and the under our economic system as it currently exists, corporations in some cases are larger than the economies of a lot of small countries. It's really critical, I think, to engage in the conversations, especially since power is so concentrated up at the top in those boards of directors, which can be made up of even only a few people. If it's a private corporation, it might be just a family. It might be just 2 or 3 people, maybe even just one person right at the top, making all decisions. Coming back again to this idea of the Trump Corporation, right? And the Trump organization. Basically, Donald makes all decisions. And his children there are figureheads, right?
So did Patrick have any closing thoughts or not?
Yeah, I think I couldn't agree with Lloyd. And also thank you again, Andrew, for educating me about the importance of ESG. I think with the ESG, we can actually get all the companies aligned with what Lloyd and you and the rest of the team are trying to do. And that is to create awareness in something like this, and using the World Civility Index as a measuring stick, nothing more, nothing less. And so I think with that kind of collaborative effort, we can align our work with what companies want, and that is they want to do good and also look good on the ESG report. So and we can do that. So that would be that could be a very bright future for all of us.
Well, thank you. I'm co-hosting another event, so I apologize for not being here. But I do want to say, Patrick, that I urge you to think about, because you provide a quantifiable results, that you may want to focus on the CFOs, the chief financial officers, to connect that dots. Because even though you're focused primarily on HR for the individuals, it's the CFOs that are going to make the final decisions. So if you could think about ways to make sure you connect those dots, I think you'll have a very strong trajectory. That's my thought.
Okay. Wow. Yes. Point well taken. Yes.
Mhm. So I'm just putting that comment into the chat. I think it's very important that we do engage. It makes it much easier because then you're usually just talking with one person, and that's the CFO of the organization. And of course, you can when you have those conversations with them, you can include other board members in those discussions. But it really makes it a much easier job. Then you're not having to talk with too many other people, and you can direct your presentation to them.
CFOs would be a great idea. I think CFOs. Yeah, I think we have been going about the wrong way, Andrew. Is trying to talk to HR and so on, because we came from the ranks of trainers. All the other members of the World Civility Index are trainers, and they talk to HR and so on. But I can see where Andrew is coming in at a much higher level with his experience in that. And yeah, this just today's talk and is so productive just with that one sentence that Andrew was talking about. Patrick, talk to the CFOs, not the HR. So thank you very much, Andrew.
Okay, so I guess we will wrap up for today, and we'll continue to have a conversation. Patrick, I do want to connect with you after this as well. I again wanted to mention out that we have a discussion ongoing with the name of this lady. Her name is Jenny Carrington. It just came to me right now. So she is developing some programs that we are aligning with. We have been for a while. And so this what we call practical reconciliation team as well is very much on our radar as we move forward. One of the things I do also need to follow up with is creation of UnityNet Ontario as a partnership, because that is one of the organizations we want to partner with is Rotary International. And so that is very important for us to try to work with Rotary, because Rotary is basically those CFOs and others that are retired or working in their communities to do better things for the community members, usually working closely with other people in the business communities. Okay, so thank you very much, everybody, and we will wrap up for today.
Okay, thank you, Lloyd. Thank you, Andrew.